porch light flickers low, a cold hand on the door. Your name is in the walls, I've heard it there before. Paper signs in the yard, bent sideways in the rain. The mirror keeps my face, but not the same old name. Hear that step, it's near, right behind the veil. Hold your breath, stay close when the floorboards wear. Beyond the possible, come closer, come closer. Beyond the possible, the house knows your shadow. Beyond the possible, say it slow, beyond the possible, and follow where the dark goes. Jack-o'-lantern grin, burned into the stone. A key under the mat for a room nobody owns. I saw you at the glass, then you slipped from view. 3 knocks from the hall and they were.
This country starts early. It works hard. It stays focused. It keeps moving. It stands ready. And it carries the weight. Strong coffee for a strong nation.
Who knows what evil lurks in the hearts of men? The shadow knows.
Are you troubled by strange noises in the middle of the night?
Do you experience feelings of dread in your basement or attic?
Have you or any of your family ever seen a spook, specter, or ghost?
Welcome everybody back to another Beyond the Possible, where we have another great guest tonight. We have James back, of course, for number 38 in a row. Had a good streak going, James.
Yeah, pretty amazed that it's worked out for this long that I haven't missed one yet.
So far, so good. And we have Miss Emily Ann here tonight to tell fresh off of an investigation yesterday, and lots of family history and lots of interesting stories and tales. For sure, it's gonna be a fun one. How are you doing tonight, Emily?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Oh yeah, I appreciate you willing to come on and
Of course.
reach back out. I was like, because you reached back out really fast. I was like, oh, cool. All right, cool.
I have a pretty good admin. They work pretty hard for me, so they try to stay on top of my requests, so it works out well.
Oh, nice.
Mhm.
For the ones that are listening, would you kind of give yourself a brief summary, I guess you'd say, of
Sure.
who you are and.
Absolutely. I'd be more than happy to. I am a 7th generation terminology granny witch, for whatever that's worth. I'm very, very psychic. I'm an empath. I do paranormal readings. I do paranormal investigations. I do psychic readings for people that, message me and want to do home readings or whatever. I do them right here, just like we're talking right now. I travel when I can to locations. Been really, really busy this summer. It's been a lot. And I just want to kind of work with my lineage from my grandmothers and carry it forward. And I also have a son who is just like me. So we work together sometimes. It's a lot of fun.
Nice, nice. That's awesome. Passing
Yeah.
on down the history and the gifts, I guess you'd say.
Yeah, everybody says it's a gift, but honestly, if I could give it back, I would, because it's overwhelming sometimes. It's more than you can handle. Um, Spirits are around me all the time to the point that I just have to learn to shut them out. And I do, for the most part, I do okay, but sometimes it's been a little overwhelming. This last week has been really, really hard with the eclipse moon, and with losing Dolly. She was Tennessee's icon forever, obviously, and really the world's. And we were both huge fans. My son had very close connections with Dolly, so he really felt the loss more than most people, I think. And it's just been a really overwhelming week. The vibes have been very strong, and the veil has been very thin. And I'm kind of glad to see the eclipse over with and a new week starting, and hopefully it's going to settle down a little bit for us.
Yeah, hopefully, hopefully. Yeah, that was a tragic loss for sure.
Yeah.
A lot of people. I even seen where I showed on my show Wednesday where I think the color guard for UK actually played 9 to 5, and
Yeah, I saw that.
flags at half mast and all kinds of cool stuff
Yeah.
that just to kind of tribute. So it's cool. Just a little country girl from up in the Appalachian Mountains
Yeah.
to to touch so many people.
She sure did. Colleen with From Within the Cauldron did a show devoted to Dolly last week. I'm not sure what day it was, but we were talking about that last night. So she did a whole show.
Nice, nice. That's cool.
Yeah, very very nice.
Yeah, it's that's cool. Your son has some of the same I still say gifts. Even
Yeah.
sometimes it's you know blessing and a curse. Sometimes I guess somebody say some of it. I found out a while back when I was actually talking to my mom that I came from a long line of people being real sensitive and stuff like that,
Mhm.
and like some of the stuff like even a situation we had at we were both a part of, and uh and then it kind of we actually got to talk about it one time, and they're like, yeah, your great grandma was this, and I'm like, oh, okay,
Mhm.
all right, well maybe it was because it's always been one of the things I was just kind of held on to, and not really talked about because it's such a taboo about it, and um that's why it's one of my goals of kind of doing this show is to have a place where people can come tell stories and tell things that maybe it could help others not open up about you know s- gifts in certain situations that they wouldn't before because worrying about having a crowd. It's like even I had my mom come on. She's like, I don't want to come on. They're gonna think I'm crazy. I'm not. I was like, look. She's like, no. And uh, And I was like, "No, mom." I was like, "This, nobody's gonna think you're crazy." And James was like, "No, you're good. We're." And then
Yeah.
she was like, "Well, I'll just stay 15 minutes." I was like, "Whatever you want to do, whatever. Me and James can fill the rest of the time. All we can do, we're good at that.
There you
We're
go.
Oh
professionals
yeah.
at filling time."
Yep.
But
I think with so many paranormal shows and so much more media publicity about the paranormal, I think it's more accepted than it used to be. Because I know when I was younger, I mean, you never talked about it. I mean, I always knew my grandmothers were very different, and I mean, it was just an everyday thing in our house. It wasn't anything, outlandish or you know unaccepted in
Right.
our family and our heritage. But then when I got in school and other kids and growing up, it's like we don't talk about it because they might think I'm crazy because they were watching Casper the Ghost and that kind of thing. When we were little, but now it's just I think it's more accepted. But with more accepted, I think there's also a lot more fakes, and that hurts my feelings a lot because I
Yeah.
treasure my family heritage, and to think that people fake it to just for 15 minutes of fame or just to become a celebrity or have a reality show, that hurts my heart.
Yeah. It's funny because similar with Ricky, I didn't realize until years later that I had some people in my family, not everyone, not even most, but it does go back. The sensitivity I have does seem to go back to at least my great grandfather on one side, and he was apparently very sensitive. My grandma was somewhat, and then it kind of skipped along, even though some other family members have had like one or two experiences, and then my older sisters had some, and then I seem to be the one that's had the most overall over the years, and it's what led me to get into all this, these kind of talk shows and all that, and finding out a lot about the family along the way, and that stigma is there. I mean, when I first about over 5 years ago now told my family one day at lunch, my uncle, my brother, and my dad that I was thinking about starting a podcast on all this. My uncle and my brother started joking and laughing about it, and I did something that day I never do to especially to my uncle. But I actually raised my voice and said, "Well, I'm not going to talk about this anymore right now." And they got real quiet and never did that again. And now they ask me every so often, even though they're not really into these things, they ask me how's the podcast going.
Hmm.
And I think it just took that me doing that to show them I was serious, and to get them to take it a little more seriously, I guess.
Right. I totally get that. And it's funny that you said that because I was always, when I started, I was very careful to keep my personal Facebook page away from Appalachian Visions, um, and used only my first and middle name, and just really cautious about it because I wasn't sure how I would be embraced if
Right.
anybody that I know personally found out what I am, because I've had all kinds of reactions from "oh my gosh," or "you that's not true, you're fake," or just
Oh,
it, like,
jeez.
and so just in the last week I cross posted from Appalachian Visions to my personal page, and I was surprised because everybody seemed to be super nice and kind of knew it anyway, because anybody who knows me knows that my house is very different. As you can see behind me, this is my coffee bar, this which is not the typical live, laugh, love coffee bar that you see in most of the beige houses. My house is black, and I collect spiders and skulls, and uh, just something I've always been drawn to. And I just kind of made up my mind that I wasn't going to hide what I am and who I am anymore. And if you accept me, great. If you don't, you're missing out on a good person. And that's just kind of the way I feel now.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, because
Yeah, no
it's,
doubt. You can't be. You got to be true to yourself for sure,
yeah, absolutely.
and the beauty of like the one of the positive sides, like social media and doing things like this, is there is a lot of people that for sure will support
Hmm.
and really want to have conversations or have and with people like you and have because it's you know because so many people are looking and searching for these things, or they've had things happen and they and they don't know where to go, and now we
I,
they
I totally get it. And I run into that often. I don't, I know that one lady with the great big hair, New Jersey or somewhere. I can't think of what her name is. The psychic, Long Island medium. Yeah, that's what she is. She walks up to strangers, and I've only done that twice in my entire life, and I didn't feel comfortable either time because the
Right.
situation was very weird, and I typically never do that, but I was in a grocery store. It's been probably about a year ago now, I guess. I only started my page a year ago on Halloween. I'm new actually. I've been psychic my entire life, coming from an Appalachian family that practiced this. Um, but like I said, I never really talked about it. I knew I had gifts. I knew things. I knew when people were going to die. I knew things that were going to happen before they happened. But I never really dwelled on it too much because everyone in my family did. My grandmothers, especially, not my mother and not my aunt that I was close to, but my grandmothers. And we have found back 7 generations of witches that were practicing. I mean, full blown practicing the title Granny Witch, but they did spells, they did healings, they did, visions, all that kind of thing. And we've traced our lineage back to Connecticut so far, and we're just getting ready to go over to Europe. That's going to be another whole investigation for us. My son and I are working on it together. But we have traced it back to Connecticut, and we have found 7 practicing witches in our direct heritage. And so that's something I want to hang on to, and because I don't want that to disappear, because they were amazing ladies. The ones that I knew were just absolutely phenomenal, and I I try to do everything with respect. I don't commercialize it. I don't really advertise past just reaching out on Facebook. But I was at a grocery store. It's been about a year ago, not too long after I started the page, um, and I was running in to get things to make a salad. And there was this girl standing over looking into a meat counter, and she was, I'd say, late 30s. And there was this older lady standing right next to her that I knew she wasn't alive. I knew it was a spirit. I knew it was a apparition, whatever word you want to call it. I refer to them as spirits. And she started doing this to me. And I'm like, I didn't know what to do at first. And so I kind of walked toward her, and she came to me just like this, just right to my face. And she said, "Tell her I made it over okay. And I'm going to be fine, for her to not worry. And I don't want her to cry anymore." And so immediately I knew this lady had recently died. And, and she said, "I'm her grandma." And she said, she called herself her Nana. She said, "I'm her Nana." Uh, I hesitated, and the girl looked at me because she saw me looking at her. And I walked over to her and I said, "I don't want you to think I'm a nut." I said, "I am a trauma nurse at St. Thomas Hospital here in my town." I said, "I'm not a crazy person trying to be weird with you or anything." I didn't even know how to approach it. I said,
Right.
"But did your Nana," I said, "did your Nana just die?" And all of a sudden she got tears rolling down her face. She says, "Did you work at the hospital where she died?" I said, "No." I said, "Please don't think I'm crazy." I said, I'm psychic, and don't scream." I said, "But your grandma's right here." And she told me to tell you that she made it okay. She's fine. She's happy. She's with Pop Pop, and not to worry about her. And she doesn't want you crying anymore. Well, of course, she burst into tears and hugged me.
Yeah.
And I said, "I want you to know I'm not making this up." I said, "Let me describe your grandmother to you." And I described her hair, and she had these very specific glasses, which I would have had no way of knowing if I hadn't seen them on her. She had her glasses on, and she looked like a grandma, which is kind of unusual for spirits. They usually go back to a time in their life when they were the happiest. Usually 30s, 40s, younger, kind of still had it going on, but in this case, this lady, Nana, was still as she was when she passed. And she also told me that she said, to tell you that the pink roses were her favorite, and she had sent pink roses to the funeral. That was her bouquet she sent to her grandma. And I think I validated with her, and I gave her my number. I said, I'm not crazy. And I told her I lived in a neighborhood not too far from the store. I worked at the hospital. And I said, "If you need anything, you can call me." I said, "I'm not some crazy lady." Anyhow, I got a call from her about 2 weeks afterwards, and she called and thanked me. And she said, "I can't tell you what it meant." She says, "I was barely coping walking through Publix grocery store." And she said, "I didn't think I was going to make it." And she said, "I just left my cart that day and walked out. And then I went home and I realized," and she said, it made all the difference in how I dealt with losing my grandma. She was very close to her. And when I can do things like that, that's worth it to me. I don't do it for the money, because I don't even pay my expenses majority of the time. It's expensive to do what we do, just the technical and travel, and it's a lot. I certainly don't do it for celebrity or fame. I'm way too old for that kind of garbage. But if I can help somebody, I feel like I'm doing what I'm supposed to do.
Yeah,
Right.
absolutely. And that's what it's supposed to be. I mean, when you can try to help people, and you never know. Uh, I've had a thought, a lot. It's like you never know what your help's going to do affect this person, and then down the road they might be able to help a lot more people, because
Right.
you're able to help them and
Absolutely,
stuff.
and that's why I do this. I don't, like I said, I don't care if anybody knows my name. I don't care if anybody, they don't have to follow my page. They don't have to, nothing. But I just want people to know that there is another side. I don't. I believe in a higher power. I don't necessarily believe in what is preached in a lot of churches, because when you see things, it's like you're being taught 2 plus 2, and somebody tells you that's not 4. You can't unlearn it. when you see the things that I see and deal with the things that I deal with on almost daily basis, you can't unlearn it. And to be told differently, it's hard sometimes. But I stand by what I know, what I see. I don't condemn anybody. Beliefs are personal. And if I can help just one person, which I think I have, yesterday I went on an investigation with a group that I work with fairly often here in the area. And we went to a cemetery, and the guy that was one of the guys that was new to the group, I'd never met him until yesterday. I kept getting a draw on him all day when we were walking around the cemetery, and it was so hot yesterday. It was miserable, but I kept being drawn. And he said, "There's an area I want you to go look at." And the minute I got there, I knew some of his family was buried there. And I said, "I'm getting a couple. It's a man woman. I don't think it's mom dad. I think it's older grandmother, grandfather, great grand." And he said, he looked at me, he says, "Both." I said, "I'm okay." And then I started. An uncle came forward, and I described his uncle, and he had a picture, and it was to a T what his uncle looked like. And the leader of our group, the owner of the group, he says, "Oh my gosh," he says, "that was just like what you described." I said, "Well, that's who I'm seeing right now." And I said, "I can't make people come through. If they don't want to come through, they won't." And I told him a few things, but he sent me the sweetest message thanking me and wanted me to schedule a time with his daughters. They had a couple of losses in the family that they're dealing with really well, and he thought I might be able to help them. So that's why I do this. It's not for any other reason, not money, not fame, not fortune, nothing. Just I feel like I'm supposed to do this. Um, I've had the gift my whole life, but I kind of put it on a shelf because I didn't want to be labeled a freak or. I think people saw it anyway. I've had people over my career, and I've been a nurse. I was a nurse, trauma nurse, so I dealt with death almost on a daily basis. I was a trauma nurse, and I was also a cancer specialist nurse. And for some reason, some of my coworkers were almost afraid of me. I don't know why. I'm very meek. I don't yell. I don't scream. I think I'm a good person. I would never do anything to anybody, but I guess there's just this aura about me that I can't help it. And I've had coworkers over the years said that they wouldn't want me mad at them, which I don't know. I guess I could put them in a jar. I don't know. Maybe a few people, but I never really pursued this until I got COVID, and I almost died of COVID. I don't, like I said, I'd always had the gifts. I'd always seen, but I never really talked about it, and I didn't pursue anything. I was unconscious for 11 days, and they called my family in. I didn't think I was going to survive,
Hmm.
and I guess the ancestors pulled me back because I did. And I came out of it a different person. The person that went to sleep was not the person that woke up 11 days later. It was like everything that I had seen in my past was suddenly in just the most bright, sharp visualization that I could ever imagine. And I walked out, and it's like I was the same person. And I thought, maybe this is a sign that I'm supposed to do this. And then I started thinking about it and pursuing it. And I met the paranormal group I'm with now. And then I started my own page. Like I said, last Halloween, I started my page, and I've already got like 10,000 followers, and I haven't even pursued that at all. And it's been very flattering, and I've met some great people.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
that's
really.
amazing. I'm sorry, Ricky.
No, no, go ahead, James.
That's amazing. I do agree. I'm not psychic or anything like that. I don't have any major gifts. I do have some sensitivity, but
Mm-hmm.
funny thing, I started my podcast. My first episode came out on Halloween, uh, 6 years ago now. It'll be 6 years this Halloween. So
That's great. Seems to be the time everybody starts their podcast.
yeah, I just wanted. Well, in that case, I wanted an easy day to remember what day the thing started, and I figured,
Right,
well,
right.
that's fitting. But I do agree. The reason that I do what I do, and I think a lot of people in this community do what they do is for others, is to help others know that they're not alone in their experiences, and to share experiences and compare notes and all that. And
Mhm.
so yeah, I think that's amazing. And yeah, I was curious too with the person that you helped in that grocery store regarding their grandmother appearing as a grandmother as she was older before she passed. I've heard of that where spirits do appear in different ways, and I'm wondering, do you think she was appearing that way because she had just passed, or because it was a way that she knew that her granddaughter would recognize? In other
I do
words,
believe the latter. They'll
yeah,
come, and I've seen, and I always tell when I do readings for people, I need you to open up your mind and don't just think of what you've seen today. Think of 30 years ago when you were out running around and being the wild child, or think of when your kids were little, people you knew, because I can't control who comes through, and usually, more often than not, who comes through is not who they expect. And but also the spirits, if they want you to give them some sort of a sign or a signal, or something that makes them know that I'm telling the truth. I mean, they want to reach their loved ones. And I think that's why she came to me that way and told me about the pink roses and Nana and Pop Pop. I know those are common names, but they were not common to her. That was her family. And I mean, you can't make this stuff up. I get, maybe there are people that do, but I mean, that's pretty sick. But I get
right,
that fairly often. That when they come to me, they look different. And when they come to me, sometimes sometimes it's like a miscarried baby, and that they'll come through, and it's like I never got to live on this earth, but I'm waiting for you. You come through the veil, and I get. It's just you have to keep a really really open mind, and I think that's where the empath comes through, because you have to have this empathy for what these people are going through and try to work with that. I mean, I can tell you what I see, but I have to apply it to what I tell them for it to make sense. And that's a challenge sometimes. I'm not going to tell you it is not. And sometimes people are very closed-minded when I say, okay, I'm seeing a man, he's in his late 40s, he's got this kind of hair, he smoked a pipe, he blah blah blah. I don't know anybody like that. And
right,
then I'll get a call like 2 weeks later. That's my Uncle Henry. How did you know? And I'm like, remember when I told you, keep an open mind. Uh, don't just think about today. Think of your past. And I said, I can't guarantee what's going to come through. I can only tell you what I see. And more often than not, I'll get a call or an email or something after the fact, and they're like, I can't believe I didn't remember him, or I can't believe I didn't remember her. And as bad as it is, sometimes I see things that I don't want to see. I mean, because I don't only see dead people. I mean, like the old movie, I see dead people. I see, I see what people are doing in their lives today. I mean, I know when somebody's cheating on their husband or their wife, or. And I know if you've had an abortion or if you've had a miscarriage. I mean, I see that very often. I don't refer to that as an abortion or miscarriage. I say you lost a child, and that's as far as I go. I'm very careful about what I say to people, because I think sometimes they're afraid of what I'm going to say. I'm not going to lie, but I'm not going to say anything to hurt anybody specifically. And I think that's why a lot of people are a little leery of having readings from anybody, because number one, there's a trust issue, which I totally get it. Um, Before I started doing this years ago, I would have gone to a psychic if it was free. I mean, there's no way. But now that I've seen the other side, it's a service more than a sideshow. And I think a lot of psychics are just sideshows. I've met a lot of them since I've been doing this in the last year, and I know the fake ones the minute I meet them, and I never say a word. It's not my place to say anything. What they do is their business, but um, I don't give too many of them a whole lot of credit, I guess, for what they do, because I don't believe some of them. It's very easy for some of the larger names to fake things, and I know for a fact they do. I know for a fact they do.
right.
Um, yeah, I was thinking about you were talking about your gift and everything. We one of our chat, Merlin, was saying not that you do wish it, but you just made your comment earlier. He said, "Do not wish to be rid of it. Your gift, uh, because it has even though it's let's see, even though it said that the gifts work in a hidden quality of life,
Mm-hmm.
and so he said he's known some that you take the gifts were taken and they really they were sad because they were, guess, they're taken later on. They realize what they lost. So
It's hard day to day life though, because I'm retired now. COVID kind of took my life away from me, literally. I'm not able to do what I used to do anymore. Um, and I've become almost a hermit. After I was sick, I didn't leave the house for months. I wasn't physically able to. I mean, I couldn't deal with the emotional and I couldn't deal with the physical. It was really hard. But that being said, I try to go out. I make myself go out, but it's very hard because like I said, I walk in a grocery store and I see this. I mean, I go in Walmart and it's just like overwhelming to me. It's just like all this world's around me, and I've learned to block it out and just not even acknowledge it. But it's I'm not going to say it's easy. I see things that are going to happen to people that, I don't want to say, you need to slow down and not drive as fast because if you don't, you're going to be in a car accident. And I actually did a reading for a girl. It's been probably 6 months ago now. And I told her, I said, your partner drives like a maniac. And she said, how do you know that? I said, I see it. I just see it. I said, you need to tell them that they need to slow down. And the partner was a total non-believer. Said she was wasting her time talking to me. Just totally disregarded me. I said, you know what? Take it for what it is. I can only tell you what I'm seeing, but I'm seeing an act. She sees an accident. I don't think she's in an accident, but she needs to slow down. And the very next afternoon, I get a message. You're not going to believe this. My partner was stopped by the cops today for going 75 in a 50 or something. I said, see, I told you. And I told you she needs to slow down. So little things like that are maybe inconsequential, but I see them and it's like my heart wants to tell these people, but I'm like, I can't walk up to that person and tell them that. Or I can't tell them they need to get a different doctor because they need to have this taken care of. Or I just don't. And to hold it in sometimes is hard. And at the very least, it's overwhelming because the public is not my friend. I'm very sensitive to sound because sound is carried through the paranormal veil. I mean, sound is terrible. When I lie down at night, I have to really, I do a little ritual. I light my incense and I ring my bell to call my ancestors around me. And my ancestors always show up. There's some cool ancestors in my lineage for sure. And but when I lie down, it sounds like, and the only thing I can compare it to is the sound you hear if you're sitting in a football stadium or a basketball arena, that roar. It's all voices, but you can't pick them out. You hear it, but you don't. And I have to shut that down at night so I can go to sleep. And recently, I've had a couple of spirits come around me that don't speak English. I'm thinking that they're speaking French. I'm not much of a linguist. I mean, I speak a couple other languages, but not that. And it's very hard because I don't understand them. And they're just like right here. They're just like right here. You can't get them away. And I just have to say, go away and leave me alone. I'm not talking to you. And they do. Most of the time they do. I've got a couple spirits here in the house that are very persistent. They're around all the time. Last night I had my... I don't use anything when I go out on an investigation. I just use a flashlight if I go at night. And my boyfriend actually bought me an EMF detector because he says, you've been having trouble here in the house lately. He said, I just want to see what it is. Not that he didn't believe me. I think he just wanted to be validated. Put it on the dresser last night and my dog went crazy and looking at it, it was going off. And he said, it's exactly where you said it was. And I said, yeah, I've seen it every night for the last 2 or 3 weeks. It won't go away. And they sit on the bed. You can feel them when they sit on the bed at night. And I don't pay attention to it anymore. At first, I thought it was my cat. It's not my cat. I think he was stunned when it went off exactly where I told him I was seeing it night after night after night. But, he believes me because he can't believe me because of what he's seen me do. And he knows I had no way of knowing this about this person, or I'm very particular. I won't let anybody tell me anything. I will know either just a first name or a first initial, whichever the client wants. And I don't know anything else. My admins take care of everything. And all they do is say you need to be on at this time, and the initial is K or the initial is R. And I think it was very, very telling for him, because it was exactly what I had told him. And now every time the dog barks, he looks like, what is it now? So anyhow, I guess I'm freaking him out. And to top it off, he is a uber Christian gospel singer. Dating a witch, right?
Nice. Well, that's saying opposite attracts.
We are about as opposite as two people can be, but we get along great. We both respect each other. I was raised in the Christian church, played piano in church, taught vacation Bible school in church every time the doors opened. And then, I mean, now I know I would be ostracized for sure, but I can't deny what I am. I can't, like I said, if I could turn it off, I would. But I feel like I've got a path that I'm supposed to follow, and I'm going to do my very best to honor what my lineage is and my sweet ancestors that bore this cross, so to speak, through their entire lives. So here I am.
Yeah, I'm really curious. I mean, to find all that information, that sounds like a massive project to go through. To get all that information, I don't know if you want to talk about that process, or what you found, if there's anything you want to share. Obviously, don't if you don't want to, if there's anything you want to keep to yourself, but really curious about the process and what you found.
As far as accepting what I can do, or
Oh, I'm sorry about your lineage. With your
it was
yeah.
it was funny because when I was little, my grandmother, actually more my great grandmother, my grandmother's son, my great grandmother, unbelievably, and the one before that, I vaguely remember her, but I've collected stories, and they were like the healers of the communities that they lived in. They were like the midwives. They delivered the babies. They when somebody was hurt, they did their herbs and things to heal them, because they didn't have pharmacies. Most didn't have doctors that were within a 2-day ride on a horse, because this was back before cars. And
Right.
they were actually active in all of that. And my lineage is Isabella, Sarah, Elena. Um, those are the three that are the closest, and they go on back. And those are the ones that were up in the New England area, in the eastern states. And I've got it all written down, but the three that I just mentioned were the ones that were actually in the Appalachian hills. And they were the ones who laid out bodies when they died. They would, it's called sitting up with the dead. The family would sit up all night with their past loved ones. They just were like almost the matriarchs of the communities, because what they could do kept the communities thriving and as healthy as they could be. So, and then when I started wanting to do this, I thought before I do this, I need to know where I came from. And that's when I started with the Ancestry.com and going back. And my son helped me. He is phenomenal. He's found things that I can't even believe he found. Pictures. I'm actually in the middle of writing a book. And I do have some pictures, not as many as I wish I had, but I have some pictures, and I do have the paperwork of where they lived. And they were called midwives, or herb doctors. They had all these kinds of strange names for them, but it falls into the category of granny witch, and I wear that proudly. So
Yeah, Matt's house said medicine men and women. Was another.
and I'm Cherokee Indian as well. My father was Cherokee Indian, so I have the Indian heritage mixed in with the granny witch. And from what I understand, that's a pretty powerful powerful combination, because I do honor the Indian as well, because my father he was like an Indian chief. He was this dark leather skinned man. He was very tall with the typical Cherokee features, and his father was the same. And I know that plays into it because the what the Indians did was very similar to what the granny witches did, just in a different culture. Just a different culture.
Right. And it seems like that was the case with a lot of people around the world,
Mhm.
just in different cultures, different ways, different names
Right.
throughout
Exactly.
time.
Absolutely. Not a question about that at all. But I try to focus on my bloodlines as much as possible. I want to find out more about my Indian heritage. It's very hard to find out. Um, Records weren't kept the way they should have been in the Appalachians. I mean, it was really hard. But I'm working on it. I've made a little bit of progress, but it's not easy. It's not an easy thing to find. But we're working on it slowly but surely.
Yeah, I know my mom's. She's she's done the heritage and back and went all the way back, and a lot of the rolls and stuff for the Cherokee, and like, we have Blackfoot and
Mhm. Mhm.
in our heritage and stuff. So she's gone, and then of course on the Irish Scottish side on my
Mhm.
for me we go all the way back, and she's got history back to last time I asked her. I think she's back to about the 1500s. She's actually gone back,
Wow, that's amazing.
and
I haven't gotten
she's got
back
a
that
book
far.
like that thick, full of stuff that she used to go to our main library in Memphis and do one of the floors is just kind of just for genealogy, and she'd go in there for hours and do research and
That is amazing. I haven't gotten back that far yet. We hope to before it's done. But um, I wish while my grandmothers were still alive, I had sense enough to ask more questions. Um, I just took a lot of things for granted, and I've kind of replayed memories back in my mind. I'm like, well, that's why they did this, and that's why they did that, and I'm kind of kicking myself that I didn't ask more because it kind of blends in with everything like cryptids. I mean, they believed in like Bigfoot. They didn't call it Bigfoot. They believed in aliens. They didn't call them aliens. They
Right.
called them angel lights. I mean, it all happened in this just big mishmash of what they were in the mountains. And I think back on it now, and it's like these light bulbs go off. Like, oh my gosh, I get it now. And it's just it, it's just sad that I didn't think to ask before they all passed. But I'm doing my best to kind of recreate and go back and play, conversations and memories and that kind of thing because I don't want to lose it.
Yeah.
yeah.
I I get that because my grandma told me stories when I was like a teenager or my early 20s about her sister's house. I live in Michigan here, and this family used to live on the west coast of Michigan. I'm on the east coast, and but she used to tell me stories once in a while about this house that was just extremely haunted. And but obviously this was decades before I ever thought about looking into all this stuff and working with this stuff on a regular basis. So I didn't think to write anything down or record. Not that I could have written anything down easily. I'm legally blind, so writing is not my strong suit. But just recording anything, audio wise. But I didn't think about it. It was fascinating to hear. And now I'm sad because I only have these fragments of these stories, and they're amazing. But that's all they are is fragments because I don't have all the details surrounding them.
Right. I feel the same way. I absolutely feel the same way. But the more I got into the paranormal side, I don't call the granny witches not a paranormal. I mean, they see and they know and that type of thing, but it's not like they're doing paranormal research. They know spirits exist. They know that there's not any research to be done. It's a fact.
Right.
But like my grandmother, I remember the story she would tell me. When something would come on TV about Bigfoot, oh, Bigfoot sighting, she says, why do they think that's a big deal? They don't know what's in those mountains. Would they think that's not real? And I would like, do you believe in Bigfoot, Grandma? She says, well, I don't know Bigfoot, but she says there's things in those mountains that are big and hairy. She'd say, and she's told me one story that I still remember, and I was small when she told me this story, but it stuck with me. And I played this over 1,000 times. I can remember where we were sitting. I can tell you what dress she had on, but I remember this story. And she came from a family of 9 kids, and she was the baby. and they lived in the Appalachian Mountains. I mean, they were Appalachia. I mean, and they had a brother. His name was Jerry. And in today's world, he would probably be autistic, special needs. He was something else. I mean, he wasn't. But they didn't have labels for kids back, at the turn of in the early 1900s. He was just they called him a dumb kid because, I mean, he was, I knew him as an adult, but he wasn't dumb. He's one of the smartest men I ever knew. He was just smart in a different way.
Right.
And he loved to play jokes on people. That was because he liked the reaction. And my grandmother had another way of telling the story, but I'm not nearly as gifted a storyteller as she was. But she said that they were all sitting out on the porch one night, typical lightning bug, garden growing up, cows in the barn, kind of typical Appalachian night. And like I said, she came from a family of 9. And Jerry was the prankster. And he had a room up on the top floor of the house. And this is a Bigfoot story. And she said they would hear things all the time howling in the woods. And she said nobody really knew what it was. They just knew if you heard that, you got home. And that was what the grandmother said. If you hear that, you get home. Right now, you get home. And they started hearing that. And they were all there together, so they weren't really concerned. And they all said, "Oh, that's Jerry. He's pulling a prank. He was the only one that wasn't there at the time. So that's Jerry. He's out there in the woods pulling a prank." And so they didn't think much about it. And the way she described it, their yard kind of went down into a little hollow where like limbs and leaves and trees fall, and it kind of had collected. And this is the Appalachian Mountains. You got to remember that. And they were all just sitting there minding their own business and talking and with each other. And all of a sudden, this, whatever it was, I'm going to call it a Bigfoot, pushed up out of those limbs and trees and leaves and everything and took off running. And they all kind of looked at each other and they said, "Oh, that's got to be Jerry." And just about that time, Jerry came out the door with a glass of milk in his hand. And so, I mean, that was a story she relayed to me when I was a young kid, and I've never forgotten that story. So when we would hear about anything Bigfoot or something in the, she said, "Oh, there's all kinds of things in the mountains." And I remember her telling that story. And they took these things for granted. It wasn't, is Bigfoot real? They knew something Bigfoot-like was real. So
That's amazing. You hear that so often. There's in families that have someone that is known for being sort of that trickster, that joker, whatever. Not joker in a bad way, but
I get you, absolutely.
yeah, no, I don't. Yeah, but then you'll hear that in accounts of experiences where everyone will think it's that person, and then there'll be some confirmation.
Right.
Where either he'll be right there, they'll be right there, or they'll like that one that came just after, and that to me is fascinating because it's just that's pretty hard to disprove that there's something going on there when the person you think it is
Yeah, and they
causing the thing,
yeah, absolutely.
couldn't have done it.
And they said they were all kind of. She said we were all surprised. Here come Jerry out the front door with a glass of milk, and she said that thing had just taken off like 10 seconds before because he heard something. He said, "I heard something hollering out here," and I'm using their vernacular, because I mean I speak fluent Appalachian, so and
Yeah.
They said, "Jerry, was that you?" He says, "Well, no, it wasn't me." He says, "I was upstairs." He says, "I just came down to get some milk and see what y'all was doing," And but they didn't think anything about it because they heard it all the time, and they knew it wasn't wolves, they knew it wasn't bears, and it was just this. Grandma, I remember my grandma saying it was like the most moaning, sad, emotional cry. I mean, it was just this, like the saddest thing in the world that had been told to you, and you're just screaming and crying, carrying on. But they heard it all the time. And then I remember my great grandmother Isabella saying, "If you hear that in my yard," she says, "you get your tail in the house now." So my grandma knew. My great grandmother knew. I mean, it wasn't anything that they didn't know existed, and that gives me another whole level of respect for what they did back then, because here we have every radar and sonar and detectors of everything, and they can't prove or disprove Bigfoot. But my great grandma knew. You know? So
Right.
for what it's worth in their opinion, but they said they walk on 2 feet. They're covered in hair. She's a lot of people call them bears, but she's them ain't no bears. Them ain't no bears.
Yeah.
And yeah,
That's amazing.
yeah, it's a true story. True story, and that is directly from my grandma to me, and then and I believe my grandmother. She was a hard woman. She was funny as could be, really hard woman, but you could tell if it came out of her mouth, you might as well know it was the gospel truth. I mean,
Right.
she would never. She had no reason to tell anything but the truth. So.
Yeah. You know, it's funny because my grandma was basically her family was always um, they were Catholic, but she still knew that there was other things out there, and some of those experiences that she had at their sister's house, that was stuff that did not fit in any particular belief system, and I remember when she would tell me these things, I could tell that she was not making things up,
Right.
you know. My favorite one of those was she said that at one morning they were all there and they woke up and the family car was not in the driveway, and they couldn't figure out where it could have gone. And they got a call from their neighbors, like on another street that day, saying this neighbor had seen the car driving down the road and pull up near their house, and then just stop, and there was no one in the driver's seat.
I absolutely believe in things like that. I think
Yeah,
people underestimate what the spirit world can do because they don't want to believe, they don't acknowledge it.
right.
I've seen and heard things in my lifetime, and more so in the last year, 2 years since COVID, because I've just kind of opened up my mind to this is real. And the more I research, I absolutely believe that with all my heart, not a question. And
Yeah.
I've just heard too many stories from my ancestors and in my own research that
Yes.
the research matches what I was told,
Yep.
and
Same here.
I believe it 100%.
Yeah. Yeah. I am curious about your investigations that you've done and some of your maybe your the interested experiences, if I could talk, the experiences that you had in them that were sort of the most interesting to you.
Well, actually did my first investigation on my own house because before I moved to Tennessee, I lived in Indiana. I went through a divorce and all the things that go along with that garbage. And we lived in a great big 6,000 square foot Victorian house that was built in 1880. And it was reputed to be haunted. Didn't buy it for that reason. I bought it because I love the house. It's gorgeous. And the last person that lived in that house was the one of the town doctors and one of the very respected town doctors. And it's a strange situation because 8 people died in the house, and they were all related to this doctor. That I mean closely. And I moved in the house. Still not at the point in my life where I was seeking anything paranormal, but things started happening, and I just kind of shoved it off as I don't know, consequent, or just I don't know, just any reason I could think of to it's nothing, it's nothing. And then when I was living in the house by myself, I started doing a lot more research. And I'm not afraid of cat. I'm not afraid of anything. I'm a hillbilly Appalachian woman. I am not scared of anything. I mean, nothing. One night, I got so scared in that house that I went and shut the doors in the family room, locked the doors, and literally got my gun, laid it right on my chair, and I spent the night in my chair in a locked family room with the door shut. Um, I had made the mistake of collecting a lot of Italian art, and I collected a lot of Italian light fixtures because they fit the house beautifully. And I had a huge picture of Peter and Paul doing the Sermon on the Mount on my staircase. And the picture was probably 6 foot wide by 8 or 9 feet tall. It was huge. The frame itself was a foot thick, and it came from Italy, and by a well-known artist. It was brought over from Italy, and most of the things that happened in the house were around the staircase. And it had this huge staircase that went up and wrapped around, and 2 landings, and another great big landing. And there were 5 bedrooms around the top of the landing. And I was in my bedroom, sound asleep, by myself in this house, not paying a whole lot of attention. And my bed kept vibrating. It's just like somebody was just shaking the bed trying to wake me up. And I woke up, and there was like semi-apparition. I just thought it was because I had blurry eyes. I just woken up. Didn't think much about it. And all the doors, I always kept the bedroom doors open. I didn't like a closed-up house. I learned that from my grandma. You let the air flow. And all 5 of the bedroom doors slammed at the same time. So I ran down the stairs, went to the family room, did a lot of research, and I found out there were 8 people that died in the house. So there were actually 3 wives of this doctor who died in the house, 3 of his children, and a housekeeper and a nanny. And the activity in that house was so much, sometimes you could not sleep. And I talked to the woman who owned it before me, and I said, did you ever have anything happen? And she said, it's Bert's wives and their kids. They lost 3 kids. He lost his wives and a nanny and a housekeeper. And so you saw it too. And she says, oh, honey, she says, and this lady was just as common. I mean, she had money because she had married the doctor, and she had money, but she was moving to Florida, one of those kind of ladies. And she said, saw it every day. She said, we didn't think anything about it. And she said, have you seen the nanny? And I said, well, I don't know. I said, I need to talk to my son. And so my son was asleep in his bedroom, which was the nanny's room. And he came downstairs. He was probably 9 or 10. He came downstairs. He says, Mom, he says, I'm too big for you to tuck me and leave me alone. And I'm like, honey, I didn't tuck you in. He says, yes, you did. And I was like, no, I didn't. And so I was talking to the lady that owned the house before, and she said, yeah, that's the nanny. Said she tucked the kids in every night after she passed away. She died of an infection, and this doctor couldn't save her. And she's still in the house. And she only speaks German, so she won't talk to you, but she only speaks German. I'm like, great. So anyhow, but the activity in that house was just crazy. And that's kind of when I started wondering, do I have an interest in this? And obviously I did. And I called a friend of mine who, she was this hippie chick girl. She was always into all the metaphysical and all this stuff. I said, do you know anybody who does readings on houses? And she said, I do. She says, they're from Minneapolis. And I said, well, can you get a hold of them? And she contacted her, and she said, don't tell her the address. Don't tell her anything about this house. And so she came to my front door, not knowing where she came from. And she said, don't say anything to me. She said, I'm not being rude. She said, I just want a clean read. I backed up and I let her do. She started saying, okay, a little boy died in the attic. One of the daughters died of an overdose. Another one died in a car accident. One wife fell down the stairs. She said, I can see her laying right there. She described it all. And she said, the only thing I cannot understand is, why am I hearing the name Pauline? She says that, and she said, that's my name. And I said, your name is Pauline? She said, I keep hearing it over and over and over again. And she's telling me to tell Adam, which is my son, that I love the new bird. And I had just bought my son a parrot about 2 weeks before. And it was up in the sunroom of this house. She hadn't seen the bird. She hadn't even been up there yet. And I said, well, Adam is my son, and I bought him a new parrot just a couple of weeks ago. And she says, well, why am I hearing my name Pauline? She says, and I said, that's my mom's name. And she says, let me describe her. And she described her, and I pulled out a picture, and it was to a T. So Mom was there telling Adam she liked his new bird. And so that's when I really got an interest for what I'm doing today. And that was my first investigation, I guess, so to speak, because then I was very careful about what I heard and what I saw and the things that I felt in the house. And I actually kept a journal of it. And the lady I bought the house from was a chain smoker. about 5 foot nothing and weighed about 80 pounds, chain smoker, was married to the doctor. He died in prison, a drug trafficker, which this sounds like a soap opera, I know, right? And she lived there by herself before I bought the house. And I came in one night and she didn't want to leave the house. She was devastated she was leaving the house, but she did. I came in one night and I was gone longer than I thought I was going to be. And I didn't leave a light on, which that's not like me. I always leave lights on. I always have night lights. And I saw what I thought was the light in the living room. I thought, well, maybe I left the lamp on. I had 2 big chairs around the fireplace and I had a lamp by one of them. And I thought, well, I think I left that light on. And I walked in there and this lady had passed away in Florida. They didn't find her for a couple of weeks after she passed. And I walked in the house and she was sitting in that chair in her little blue tracksuit with her cigarette in her hand with smoke coming up. And I looked at her, I said, oh my gosh, Betty. And as soon as I said Betty, she just like disappeared. So, I mean, I would smell cigarette smoke. I couldn't keep a lighter in the house. We had a beautiful old gas stove that didn't have igniters. We had to use a match or a lighter. Every lighter I had would disappear, and I'd find them in some strange place that I hadn't been in 6 months. And that was my first investigation. So, long story, and I apologize.
No, that's amazing. That's a lot of
True story. Absolute
yeah.
true story.
That's fascinating. Sorry, Ricky. Go ahead.
No, you're good, James. Yeah, no, that is no. Don't worry about the long story, whatever.
Oh, and I've got
That's what
another
everybody's
little
here
tidbit
for.
I can tell you. Betty, the lady I was telling you about, who was married to the doctor who lived in the house, owned a flower shop, and she was a cat lover, and she wanted to go on vacation, but she didn't know what she was going to do with her cats. And this was long before we bought the house, but she told me this story when I asked her about, is it haunted? And she had this assistant that worked in the flower shop, and she had arranged for him to come and stay at her house to take care of her cats while she was on vacation. And she said the first night she was gone, she got this screaming phone call from him. He says, I will never set foot in that house again. He says, I don't know what's in that house, but I will never set foot in that house again. I guess he ran out down the stairs, a humongous, gone with the wind looking staircase, screaming at the top of his lungs, left the cats, called her wherever she was on vacation, and said he would never step foot back in that house again, and he would never talk about what happened to him. I can only imagine after living there the years that I did. I mean, because it could have been so many things, but we weren't the only ones that experienced it. It was people who were total lay people that had no gift of paranormal or psychic or anything, that went through things that scared them to death too. So,
Right. And that's fascinating because I part of what I do for my show is I find posts from people online about their experiences, and every so often I come across a post like that where it's someone who says, I was watching this house for my relative or my coworker or my boss or whatever, and they didn't say anything about anything being weird there, but then I had this experience, I saw this or heard that. And it's things that happen to people when they're not looking for these things and have no idea about the history of a place. And yeah, these things still happen. So
yeah,
yeah,
and
it's always fascinating to me.
I think from what I've seen, because I've gone into people's houses that were haunted and told them what's going on and why. And I think when there's somebody new in the house, the spirits get more active. From what I've seen myself, investigating the old houses and things that bad things happen, because I know like I said, one of the wives fell down the steps and broke her neck, and she died right at the bottom of the stairs. I mean, there's some violence there. There's definitely violence, and the history has a long history of like crazy parties and just a lot of just very bizarre things. And I found this out after the fact, that the doctor at one point in his career had run an abortion clinic in the basement before abortions were legal. And there was actually a tunnel in the basement from where this house was. And my son found the tunnel, so I know it exists. He says, Mom, there's a tunnel down here. He called it a cave. He thought it was a cave, but it was a tunnel that went under the house and was under the street, into the house across the street where a nurse lived. And they took these women who came in for abortions under the tunnel into the other house. And that's where she let them recover from the procedures back before abortions were legal. So, So there's a lot of things in that house. Trust me.
Yeah,
Wow.
I do. That seems to track with me with my experiences in my apartment where there was a lot more activity when I first moved here, and then over time, overall, things did settle down eventually.
Hmm.
And now I'll have little things happen here or there. It's mostly this one closet door that I'll find it open. I've talked a lot before on the show about this, but I'll find it open even though when I try to open it, it always makes noise because it's a metal sliding, folding closet door, and I cannot open that thing without it making noise. But I'll find it open, and it'll happen when I'm here and awake and don't see it moving. I'll just be looking away, and then I'll look back, and it'll be open sometimes. So
Right. Right.
little things like that happen here, but it was a lot more active when I first moved here,
Hmm.
about 20 years ago now.
I think things settle over time, and I think that's a good thing because it's like the spirits make themselves at home. And
Right.
I've only run into a couple spirits in all of my investigations that I would say I thought were malevolent, not necessarily violent. I think there's a lot of bullies in the spirit world, but they can only do to you what you allow them to do because they are not of this world. They're of the other side, and they don't have the power we do. And I think that's why a lot of people are afraid that, oh, it's a demon. It's a demon. No, it's not a demon. It's not. It's a mad grandpa, or it's an uncle who thought he got screwed out of something, or it's they're not. They present themselves in ways that can be scary if you don't understand what they are. But I've in my entire life, I've one, maybe two, what I consider to be nearly demonic, but people overhype the demons. In my opinion, it's not that way. It's not that way. Demons aren't soul. They're not souls. Demons were never alive. It's something from another realm that I don't necessarily believe in.
Yeah, that's it is fascinating to me because it depends on who you talk to about all these things, and I I've been very lucky. I've had a handful of negative experiences, but I don't know what they were, and they weren't. Um, I've had enough experiences where I'd never really. I'm very careful about not becoming instantly afraid just because it's something I can't explain.
Mhm.
And so I know that, and I'm 90% sure those experiences weren't caused by my own fear, but that's a handful of experiences that I've had out of dozens, maybe over
Mhm.
100 at this point,
Mhm.
and that I've had that were actually negative, and the rest were just startling, but not. I didn't feel any negative intent in a lot of them, and I know there's people that have a lot more, and I'm not saying that those people don't have those experiences, but it just seems like I think with Hollywood and movies and TV and tabloids or whatever, they always want to lean into the exciting or the sensational or the negative because they think that's what people want, and I don't think as many people want it as they think it is, but it still is popular,
It's not. It's like the jump scare. They want it to
right?
be all drama. It's not. It's not. And I think that we were talking about this yesterday, actually, in my paranormal group. The gentleman that has the group that I work with has done this for 40 years, maybe longer than that. He's done it. He's the OG of the paranormal world. Trust me. He's been with Jason Hawes, and he's done a lot in his career. And he said he's so tired. I mean, we will spend hours and hours and hours and get nothing. And they edit these shows to make them look like it's just like a fun house Halloween haunted mansion kind of thing going on.
Right.
That's not the way it really is. And I know that that's got the shock value, and the viewers, they want to see that. They want to see everybody screaming and get the scratches, and the shadows going across the doors. And it's not really like that. Now, does that happen? Yeah, but you might sit for 2 days before you get one door opening. I mean, it's not instantaneous like they make it look. So what we do, which is real, I mean, we are as real as they come. I wouldn't associate with somebody who did the trying to make it look worse than it is, or just
Right.
any kind of trickery, because a lot of them do. I'm not going to say any names, but I know a lot of them do. Ours is absolutely real, and we do our research. I don't let him tell me anything about where we're going. We usually just meet somewhere and I follow him where we're going. I don't even want to know, which was the case yesterday, actually, where we did our investigation. And it's disheartening because we are, if you want to know what it is that is in the paranormal world, we're real. We're not fabricated. We're not making up stories. We're not, using tripwires and that kind of thing to make it look dramatic. We're the real deal. The people that are faking this stuff are the ones that are getting the attention, and that's fine because, like I said, I don't want the attention. But it just disheartens me that people are getting the wrong idea of what's on the other side of the veil. It's not this big scary monster. It's your grandma and her apple pie recipe. It's your little cousin that died when they were young of pneumonia. It's not what they present it to be, you know?
Right. Or it's just people passing through places.
Yeah.
I think that happens so much when we don't,
Mhm.
especially in cases where, someone has this one experience in a location and it never happens again.
Right. And that happens a lot. That happens a lot. Spirits, for whatever reason, maybe they passed over, maybe they thought they didn't belong there. Uh, Spirits are very fluid. I mean, they have the ability to go where they want to go and pretty much do what they want to do. And if you have to think of heaven, that sounds like heaven to me. If you could do whatever you want to do and go where you want to
Right.
go and experience what you want to see, I mean, it's just life on a different plane. I, in my personal opinion, what I see, I'm not belittling anybody's beliefs in their idea of heaven and the gates of pearl and the walls of jasper and the streets of gold and the mansions. I don't belittle that whatsoever because that might be somebody's idea of heaven. But my idea of heaven's a little log cabin up in the mountains where I came from. That's my idea of heaven. And when you pass over, I think you can make choices of where you want to be, what you want to do, and I don't think you lose contact if you choose not to. I mean, if you want to go on and not see your mean cousin from 1975 ever again, you don't have to. But to me, that's the idea of heaven. And these paranormal shows make the afterlife look very convoluted, and that makes me sad. It makes me really sad. But I guess it sells, so here we are.
Right. And I do think, people's beliefs and the belief systems they're brought up in and their own thoughts and minds and emotions, it does seem like based on if you look at this enough and you look at enough accounts of experiences, it seems like they indicate that the afterlife is what people think it is and feel it is once they get there.
I agree.
That
I think
seems to
I
have
think heaven is
shape a
what
lot of that. Sorry, yeah,
I think it's what you want it to be. I do believe that. I do believe that absolutely.
yeah, makes sense. And I've come across posts from people who say they have loved ones that have basically said that or made jokes about it. Like, there was one post I found from someone who had a dream visitation from a loved one who said something like, "You won't believe the paperwork that we have to go through to get to heaven or whatever." But it was said in a joking way,
Hmm.
and then it was a positive experience and everything was fine, and so yeah, I do think there's a lot of that, and I've heard of so many cases where people have experiences in places, and again, it's not like it is on movies or TV shows where
Right.
yeah, there's someone there, but yeah, they're just happy to be there because it's their favorite place to be,
Yeah. Well,
for whatever reasons.
and I think, like I said earlier, I don't need to be repetitive, but I think a lot of times when you pass, I think you go back to the happiest point in your life when you maybe
Right,
looked younger and you had more, you were healthier, obviously, and you a happy time in your life because I see a lot of spirits that are at that time. And I validated a lot of that when if I do a reading for somebody or I'm seeing a spirit or whatever. Do you have any pictures from like 1965? And you go through and it's like, and I will tell them they were wearing this outfit, their hair was like this, they had these funny glasses, and you go back and you find the picture in the album, and that's how they present themselves to me. And my mom did after she died. Um, I was in my 30s when she died, which has been, let's see, she's been dead 30 years. And I just didn't feel her at all. And then one day I looked up and she was in front of me. And she always had this outfit that she loved. It was this red and white tank shirt and red shorts, and she had her hair. Her hair was very dark. She hadn't gone gray, in a look from like the 70s. And I was grieving because I had lost contact with my sister. And I was just thinking about that. And I was making my bed when this happened. I was making my bed and thinking about my sister. I looked up and there stood my mom. And she looked at me and she says, "She never liked you anyway. Why do you care?" And just disappeared. But I thought she looked like she did in like 1972.
Wow.
12 years old. But I really believe, from what I've seen and what I've researched and studied and talked to people about, that's what I think happens. That's what I think.
That's fascinating. That message. That's
Mm-hmm.
because you were thinking about that, and she knew it, and
Absolutely.
yeah,
Absolutely. And it's funny because, for example, yesterday on this investigation, we were investigating what turned out to be a Civil War cemetery. And they actually, I think he hasn't posted the video yet, but I had repeated a couple of sentences to the group. They were doing the EVPs and just the EMF detectors and all the stuff. I don't do any of that. Like I said, I take a flashlight. I am my own equipment here. And
right.
I repeated a couple of statements like they said the commander was a coward, died too young. There were several statements that I made that they were telling me, and then all of a sudden, 30 seconds later, the exact same thing came through the EMF detector and the EVP or the EVP detector. I'm sorry, I get those backwards all the time. But and they were like, "How did you know that?" I said, "They told me." I said, "You can't make this up." I mean, they told me this because I said it before the EVP detector picked it up, and they were just like, they looked at me like they were almost afraid of me at that point. So, whatever.
Wow. Which battlefield were y'all at?
We were out Mount Olivet Cemetery in Nashville, and they have a huge, I'm talking probably 30-foot statue in honor of the Civil War, the soldiers who died. And they were quiet yesterday. It was almost like a reverent feeling, but I did get some good stuff. And then we did the rest of the cemetery, went around, to some different areas, and I don't know if he's got the taping edited yet. He's doing a series with me called Bridging the Veil. Bridging the Veil, and we're going to go to multiple locations. But yesterday's was Mount Olivet Cemetery, so it should be interesting. I think we got some pretty good stuff. It was so hot and miserable, but we did okay.
Not bad.
Yeah, cemeteries are a fascinating thing in the way some seem to have activity, others don't. Some seem positive, some seem negative.
Mhm.
Based on reports, they all seem to be different.
Yeah, I've done a couple different cemeteries with this group that I go out with, and one of them, I actually did a protection spell because before I even went, I didn't know where I was going. Like I said, I don't let him tell me a name. I don't want to know. I meet him and I follow. That's all I do. And I don't want there to be any say, "Oh, she studied this at the library. She researched this on Google." No, I don't. And he's my sworn testimony of that. And I before I went, I knew that this was going to be a heavy one, and so I did a protection spell. And I think he had that on video when I did it. I think it was last year we did that, and I was glad I did because this cemetery was as near to evil as I could possibly imagine. But there was a church involved, and there was a pastor that was horrible, and I found out the story afterwards. But I gave them names, I gave them circumstances, I gave them, everything. And that is the one place that I think that there was something that was, I'm not going to say demonic, but nearly demonic. It was if it was a demonic, it was as close as I've ever come. So.
Yeah, cemeteries are wild. I know I've had some experiences in some, and kind of wild range of situations, and I don't know. I'm always like, for me, it's like I'm always kind of weird at cemeteries. Like I don't like one of the people. I don't like stepping on people's graves and
No,
stuff.
I don't do
like
that.
doing that. I go around. I make sure,
Mhm.
and like I'm really weird on some of that stuff. But Yeah, but like James said, you hear stories on both sides that but eh, they are there is for sure some energy still left at some of them, and
And it's usually an energy that either had something incomplete or um, their souls just aren't at rest. I just a couple minutes from my house here where I live is the Stones River battlefield, where that was basically the turning point of the Civil War, and I think they've got 6,000 graves in the cemetery, and I go there often, a couple times a month I go over there, and I always get something new. Every time I go, it's like somebody else comes out and talks to me. And I actually have a relative that's buried over there, believe it or not. I'm a descendant of Andrew Johnson, and his nephew's buried there, who makes him my uncle, I guess. And I always go to that section, and it's always, always, always just super active. And and there's another part that I dearly, dearly love. Um, I guess some people may not know that there was a Black or African American regiment that basically was the Civil War would not have turned had it not been for these soldiers, and they're buried there. But when they were buried there, they put them in a specific section because they were African American. They couldn't be buried in the white section, which I mean that was par for the course, I'm assuming, but it makes me sad. But I never go there that I don't go to that section, and they're always just all around. It's like they're proud of what they did, and I just love that. I absolutely love that.
well, that's pretty amazing.
It is. It's really cool. That's my favorite part of the entire cemetery. I always make a point to go. I go to my cousin or nephew, or I don't know what he would be. I guess I need to figure it out. I always go to his grave and leave either a little American flag or a dime or all the little symbols. But I always go to the section where the African American soldiers are buried because that's a real special place for me. And they're always just all around. It's very sweet. It really is.
Have you done any
Yeah.
research or anything with Indian mounds?
Oh, the not necessarily in Tennessee. It's funny. This last week, I went up to the Serpent Mounds in Ohio. I did a speech up there last week in Ohio regarding the Serpent Mounds up there, which those are phenomenal. I couldn't even say enough about that place. But the farm I was raised on, after we left Kentucky and moved to Indiana, I say raised. I was older, but Indian mounds all over the farm. It was one of the most. There were actually from the historians' stories that they told us, there were two tribes of Indians that kind of converged on my family's farm's property, and there were Indian mounds and arrowheads, all kinds of fossils. I mean, just I can't even begin to tell you. I don't know a lot about the Indian mounds other than they were on my farm when I was little, and we used to go back there. And every year, the history class from the local high school would bring busloads of kids to come and see it. And I thought that was so cool because that was my farm, that's where I was living. And but I know that there are a lot of them in the area in Indiana where I grew up on. I grew up on a horse farm up in Indiana, and they were there.
Wow. Yeah, I know through my area you get the Mississippians and stuff through here, and there's probably like 20 minutes from me. I think uh there's some in the Batesville Mounds. There's three. Well, I think there's 4 mounds right there, and then I've been to a bunch of places throughout. I did the whole Natchez Trace Parkway from
Oh
one end to the
yeah,
other, and
that
there's
that runs
lots.
really close to where my son lives. I have to go under the Natchez Trace bridge to get to my son's house, so I know exactly.
Yeah, I drove the whole thing from the one end from Natchez, Mississippi, all the way up to south of Nashville, whatever,
Wow, that's amazing.
and and uh, and there's all so many places, and especially get right in Tennessee is like I tell everybody that I talk to them about it, it's like it's just wild because it's like as soon as you get on the road, it's like half mile to this.
Hmm.
There's a spot, and then it's like 1 mile to this, and like as soon as
Yep,
you get on the road, there's another sign, like it's just right. So
yep.
you're steadily, if you want to see everything, you're steadily just stopping, going.
It's
But
a
yeah,
lot. There's a lot, definitely.
there's more beautiful waterfalls. There's beautiful. and the mounds and stuff, and then some ancient sites and older sites and stuff right off the beaten path. If you get off the natural trace a little bit, I always tell everybody if you do want to go in there, make sure you watch your gas needle because there's no gas stations on the natural trace. You gotta.
No, there's not. There absolutely is not. My son's talked about that.
Come close.
He's commented on that as well. I know.
Yeah, I come close in my Jeep. I was real close. I'm like, and I'm like, and then I'm like, and then there's like drops in phone service because are you ready to? And it threw it out there. I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, I finally found a spot. I was able to jump off right there, and
Yeah.
I think
You say jump off. I know that you go. It's either 90 to 100 or 100 to 90. I always get those roads backwards, but there's a huge overpass. It's the Natchez Trace Parkway, and I couldn't figure out why every time I went to my son's house, I got really nauseous. Just I would get near that, and it was like, just like you bring out the sweat, just horrible. And I found out that multiple people have committed suicide jumping off of that area, and they've actually fixed it now, so that can't happen anymore. They put these like, I don't know, they're shaped like this around the railings up there, so people can't commit suicide anymore off that. But I guess that's, and they say it's super haunted. They said if you get down there and really go underneath where the bridge is and that kind of thing, they said it's a lot. I've never done it myself, but that's definitely someplace I would like to look at a little more someday. But
I think that's at 100. I think that is 100 where they, if I remember right.
Yeah, it's 190 or 90. I don't know, but that's how I go to get to my son's house anyway.
Yeah, I know the area somewhat. I've been through all there.
Yeah, I'm not that good at it yet, and in directions I'm not the greatest with. Just tell me turn left or right at Dairy Queen. That's all I'm good for. I can't do all that.
I understand. I know years ago I was like I taught my mom into coming. I always fun doing road trips and going by cars or random stuff or whatever. And I taught my mom one time to come with me, and she never did it again. But we were coming up. I was like, well, we don't have to go interstate. We can come up Highway 64 because they're 4-laned it all the way. They had not. And then we were going along, and I remember seeing signs, and there was like, do not use your phone, explosives in the area. And we had to turn our phones off because it was, they were actually,
that's crazy.
Of course, they cut the roads through, had to blow up. So I was like, oops.
Uh-oh. This is not good.
I was like, what have you got me into? I was like, I don't know.
That's funny. That's funny. Yeah, you in these little backwoods towns, and I seek out the little mom and pop, wide place in the road places to go. I have no desire to go to downtown Nashville. It's too much. It's just, I don't need the woohoo girls and the bachelorette parties and I don't need all that. So I try to stay back in the country, back in the woods, and as much as I can on the little 2-lane roads. That's where I'm my best. That's where I'm happy.
Yeah, for sure. I love it out that side. I'm actually going to try. I don't know if my daughter and son-in-law are trying to talk me into going out to Gatlinburg next year. We'll see how it goes. Again, I've been there a bunch of times. I always like to go, even though Gatlinburg's getting decent sized little town, whatever. But I always like going over there to Cherokee, North Carolina.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So close, and like there's a cool place to eat breakfast there, and then they get all the stores, and it's just.
I love that area over there. I always try to go as well. I don't care about walking down and buying fudge and bags of popcorn or whatever they sell. I want to go to the waterfalls. I want to go to. I want to go on the trails. I have no desire to go into the madness of the chaos because it kind of overwhelms me.
I can imagine.
I have to get away from that because it's just the energy there is not what I need from the Smoky Mountains. It's just not. It's not. I mean, it's a beautiful place, and I love Gatlinburg, and I go often, but I just I stay away from the commercialized part. I want to go where the nature is.
Yeah, I don't blame you.
Yeah,
I try to get around because I'm sure you've been, like going through the heart of Gatlinburg. It's just stop and go traffic. It's
Oh
so
yeah,
congested.
it's miserable.
It's terrible. And I
It's
remember I was like, man, I get this, and I turned on this road, and I had a 17-foot camper behind me,
oh
and
gosh.
started going up. Did not know, and I remember one part. It was we were my ex at the time. She wanted to kill me that day because we actually got the mountain road was sideways so much, and like the whole like it felt like just a little rock or something could throw us off the side of this mountain and get up to the top, and it was at the ski lodge. And
Right.
the whole guy there was like, "Made a wrong turn, didn't you, son?" "Yes, sir." "But you gotta go back down." Like,
Oh
okay.
God.
So I had to make a U-turn in their parking lot and drive all the way back down. And
Hope you got good brakes.
yeah, yeah, I was like,
Yeah,
yeah, it was
I
rough.
totally get it. I I went. I was having I don't know, an emotional crisis after my divorce, and just kind of wanted to reset my life. And I jumped in I had an expedition at the time, big white expedition, 4-wheel drive. Thank God. Threw my dog in the car. Went to Gatlinburg. I stopped at a real estate office on like 2 days before Thanksgiving, and I said, I want a cabin so far up in the mountains that you can't find me. Just remember I went up there and be sure I come back. And he says, I think I got something. So he rented me this cabin. I got groceries, got ready for Thanksgiving. Me and my dog went up this mountain, and it was so. I mean, I'm not afraid of the mountains because I was raised in them. My dad was, he was a dump truck driver from the coal mines, and I've been on some roads. But I got up there, and it was like a switchback. I had to pull up and then back up this driveway, and it was like this. I mean, my truck was 4-wheel drive, and I made it, but I don't know how. So I totally understand.
Yeah, yeah, it's some wild stuff up there, and the amazing thing out there for the ones who've never been out there is just the bears that just walk along like it is no
Oh
big deal,
yeah,
just
and
walking
I
down the
think
middle
it's
of the
more
street.
so.
Yeah, just I got a picture of one, and where he was just walking. I was driving down the road, and I just stopped and took my camera out, took a picture, and then we were doing during COVID and stuff like that. It was 21, I think. We went up there, and last time I've been, and with my oldest and their family, and we turned around, and it was I put it as my background for my Zoom calls because we're doing Zoom calls for work and stuff like that. 'Cause it was funny because one of the guys was like, he sent me a text, "Ricky, there's a bear behind you," because that was my background for the thing. And it was,
They're common now. I mean, they're right in downtown Gatlinburg. So I mean,
oh yeah, just
they're coming for the good stuff, I guess.
yeah, no, yeah, because and nobody messes with them, so they just
No,
kind of wander around, do what they want to do, and I've seen several up when I've been up there, but it
yeah,
is some beautiful country up there,
it
and then
is.
especially when you get away from Gatlinburg, and
Yeah,
um, I
absolutely.
I remember we went the long way home, went through North Carolina to get to Chattanooga to come back around. Just so we ain't no hurry,
Yeah.
and
Oh
all
yeah.
those and then of course seeing all the rapids right there where they were having with the tubing buses coming up about to run you over trying to get back up, they get another load. But man, it was some beautiful rapids and just country. It's amazing. It really is.
Yeah. Last time I was in Gatlinburg was to see Dolly Parton at the LeConte Center. And that was the last time I've been. I've got to go again, but I got to get my heart in the right place because it's still broken. So I'm going to have to get a little better before I can do that trip again.
Yeah, I
But,
understand.
but I love the area. I love it. It feels like home. I mean, the Appalachians are obviously my home, and they always will be. And I hope to be buried in my family cemetery there someday. It's just up on the side of a mountain, and that's where I hope my soul ends up someday. But Smokies are pretty special as well.
Hmm.
Yeah, I am curious about because you mentioned earlier your family they had different names for all the different things that people talk about now, and one thing I've always been fascinated with is these lights or these orbs people see. And I'm wondering what your thoughts are on those. And I'm not necessarily talking about, dust or bugs that are caught in cameras, but just more people's encounters, or if you had any with where you see them, with your own eyes, and what
Um,
you think those all are as well.
you're talking about if you're doing an investigation and people say, "Oh, there's an orb. Oh, there's an orb." Is that what you're referring to?
Well, there's that, but then just sightings of them in general, just out in the open, not on cameras, just with your own eyes if you've seen them, or what you think these things are when people see them with their own eyes, where it's not, is it where it isn't, dust or bugs, or
Right. Well,
is it
I've
that?
got two schools of thought there.
Hmm.
On a lot of paranormal investigations, I think people are so desperate to see something or feel something or say they've recorded something that they are mistaking. I'm saying mistaking, not um, dust for orbs.
Right,
And I think that happens more often than not. If you've been an investigator for any period of time, you can tell the difference. But I think people want to be able to say, "Oh, I got a recording of this. I got a recording of that." Oh, look at this, and I'm like, "Oh yeah, those are good orbs." I just like they're not orbs, but okay.
right,
And but I know for a fact um, that and I don't know how to even approach this. I don't want to say aliens or UFOs or anything like that. Did my family see lights in the mountains? Absolutely, they saw lights in the mountains, and they saw lights in the mountains way up in the sky back at the turn of the early 1900s, late 1800s, early 1900s. I mean, I've got the stories that they told me about, and they referred to them as angel lights. That's what they called them. And this was before airplanes. This was before anything that could, be up in the sky as high as they were. And they called them angel lights. And I remember one time when I was a little girl. I don't even know how little I was. I don't think my sister was even born. So I could have been more than 4 or 5 years old at the most. Sitting on the porch at my great grandma's house, and these lights went over, and that was in the early '60s. And I said, "Grandma." And she said, "Oh, angel lights." And I remember that to this day, but it wasn't a plane. It wasn't, I don't want to call them UFOs or aliens. I don't want to tag it as that, but they took that so for granted that it didn't even bother them. But I mean, back when they saw these things at the turn of the century, there were no planes. I mean, I don't know how you explain something like that. And they were moving, they were bright, they were specific. So I don't know. Orbs, I believe that there are orbs in the mountains, and a lot of people think they're fey activity, which is it's like the fairy lights kind of thing, because I believe in fey. I believe in fey. I believe that it's as real as the trees they come from. I think trees hold energy that nobody understands. I mean, those
right,
things that have stood for hundreds and hundreds of years, and what they've seen and what they've felt, and I believe that there's a residual energy that they thrive from, and that's my thought when it comes to orbs in the woods. I believe that's where it comes from, because there is an energy there that could generate something that looks like that. That's the only thing in my realm of knowledge that could account for that in the woods. When you get into more of a urban area where there's lights and strobes and all this kind of stuff, I tend to question it a little more. But when you can't account for that, anything, I mean, there's no electric on the side of these mountains. There's nothing
right,
electric. I absolutely believe in them, and I believe I don't want to tag it paranormal. I just think it was life in the mountains. I mean,
right,
that was part of the Appalachian culture, and they didn't think anything about them because they'd seen them in their entire lifetime, so they weren't afraid of them. They called my great grandmother Isabella called them angel lights. They were angel lights. That's how she referred to them. I remember it well.
that's amazing. Yeah, I had a series of sightings of a blue light in the sky near my place, and I'm very much, at this point aware, like, to me, if it's just a light that I see, especially, in these days in any kind of urban area, I'm gonna think automatically it's some kind of machine from some
Mhm.
person somewhere.
Yeah.
But I had a series of sightings where I saw this light and in the sky, and there was telepathic contact.
I
And
have no doubt that that happens. And if you had
yeah,
contact, that just validates as far as I'm concerned.
right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely,
and
that
so
validates it.
yeah, I'm just always curious about what people think about all these lights that people see, and the other experiences they have with them and all that. So
Well, like I
yeah.
said, I think people are so anxious to prove something, to find something, to record something, that they want to put labels on things that may not be real. But if you have actual, like a telepathic contact or any kind of an apparition, or, I mean, I believe those are signs from the afterlife. And
Mm,
I'm always very careful that I follow the moon cycles, because that's part of the Appalachian heritage. You read everything by the moon cycles. I mean, you cut your hair by the moon cycle. You planted your garden by the moon cycle. You. I mean, everything you did was dictated by the moon. And if you think that there's not a higher power up there, and I'm calling it a higher power, some people say Jesus, some people, everybody's got their name for the higher power. But if you believe that there's not something up there that's dictating all this, you need to read and study and see what you think you're going to believe that's true, because you're missing a whole big area that is, in my heart, absolutely not only part of my heritage but part of our culture. I believe that.
yeah, it
Yeah, I can
makes
see
sense.
that, and I was just thinking about too. I know one of the things that some see up in the mountains, like the moon-eyed people and stuff like that, like the Cherokee scene. I done a short on some of that, talking about some of them things, but yeah, I know we like to talk about, like, like with the orbs and stuff like that. People want to put stuff in boxes, but it's kind of, could be, E all above. It could be multiple choice of what it could be. These things.
You're
Um,
100% correct. I believe I agree with you 100% on that. People are too quick to put a label on things that they don't understand. And I mean, I don't know, when you hear all these stories about people that go up into the mountains and are never seen or heard from again. I mean, there's several things that I think it could be. Number one, a bear. I mean, there's some bears dinner. But number two, and I know this to be in the mountains where I come from, because they were talked about, is they call them the feral people. They're people that have lived such hard lives, they become almost animalistic. And they don't, I mean, they don't wear clothes. They live in caves. They live in trees. They live in wherever they can find shelter. And they're a whole different species that I don't know if a lot of people even know or believe they exist, but they do. I mean, you could be in the mountains, and this is back when I was a little girl, and I follow several other people who are into Appalachia like I am, and they've got stories that just absolutely will make your blood curdle, that things that have happened with these so-called feral people. And they've been around since, I think, the beginning of time. They're people that were maybe orphaned when they were children and started into, just living their own life as best they could, and they fell in with animals, and they're not what I would consider to be, they're human, but they don't have human characteristics as far as how they live. And I think that is where a lot of the people that go into the woods and disappear, I honestly believe that's where they end up. The feral people get them, because they are vicious, because they're protecting all they have, which is their space. And I think innocent people wander into those, and that's I think that's what they encounter. I really believe that. I've had too many people tell me stories about things that happened, and I've done quite a bit of research, because I wanted to make a chapter in my book about the feral people. And I believe that more so than the bears, um, just because of the time frames that they happened in, when bears are active and when they're not. And I believe that with everything in my heart. I absolutely do.
I can see that. Kind of like the hills have eyes, kind
Literally.
of people. Yeah,
Literally.
yeah. I've heard stories too of that. Where there's people just they their family tree's pretty straight and narrow.
Oh yeah.
Straight up in the air, and
Literally. Absolutely.
and they don't interact with nobody else, so they don't know how to interact with nobody else. And
I was told by some people that I trust implicitly, that have no reason to lie to me, and I don't believe they would. They don't even have language. They become so animalistic. They just grunt, and they're not even. I mean, they're obviously a human species, but they have gone back to almost like caveman existence. And if you think that they're not in those Appalachian Mountains and probably the Smoky Mountains as well, you're missing it because they are. I've heard the stories from my grandparents, and they knew sounds. They knew the Appalachian hills like listening to a radio. They knew, okay, that is a bobcat, that is this, that is that, that is, and
Yeah.
they knew the weather by the signs. I mean, their whole existence was just noticing what was around them. And I remember my grandparents, back my generations, talking about the Pharaoh people. They're talking about, and so I have no doubt. I mean, I know my grandparents, my grandmothers did not lie to me about any of that because the wisdom that they imparted to me that I'm hanging on to so tightly right now, I wouldn't give it up. And I know that what they were telling me was the truth. Absolutely no question about it.
Well, it makes me wonder too. If you have that, if there's still people, obviously, then they would still have spirits. So you could have living people out there, again, out in nature. I've heard, well, we've explored everything. We know what's everywhere. No, I don't think we do. But not beyond that. I mean, if there's any kind of apparitions or residual images or energy of these people too, in some of these places,
I,
and they're just coming and going, you might not know if you're dealing with a living or a spirit of one of these people in places too.
I absolutely agree with you, and I believe in residual energy more than anything. I think
Hmm.
people try to say, "Oh, my house is haunted." And, okay, you may have spirits in your house, but it's probably a residual energy that's just a remembered. I mean, and that's where I go back to the trees. The trees remember. I mean, they have done such research on trees that it just absolutely fascinates me that if one tree is sick, the other trees will wrap their roots around its roots and try to give it strength. They actually have a language. They talk to each other. I mean, trees are more human than I ever imagined. And I've been researching this just in the last year, and I am literally stunned by what I have found out. And I mean, I don't take information lightly. I mean, I want proof because I don't want to be made a fool of by somebody that says, "Oh, you believe that?" Or, well, I have this evidence to prove why I believe it. And but trees are more human than anybody imagines. And there's just trees. I mean, millions of trees in the mountains, and there's an energy there. I mean, the Appalachian and Smoky Mountain area is older than time itself. I mean, it's just I can't even wrap my brain around everything that is there. I mean, it's just I mean, we could spend eternity investigating and we'd never know everything. There's just no way.
Yeah,
Yeah, for
trees
sure.
and mushrooms to me are just anything like that that has been. I've heard there's a giant mushroom type thing that's under Michigan that's just massive, or at least there was, and it's just and it's a kind of life. It does exist, and I've heard
Exactly.
that about trees as well with the roots and everything. That to me is really amazing, and I don't doubt it because I mean, if you go into any kind of woods, there's a presence there, and it's not that every forest is haunted by people necessarily. It's an energy of just the trees. I
It's
really
an
do.
energy of a tree.
You can
It's,
feel that.
I absolutely agree with you 1,000%. And I don't, I don't think that there is in this culture. I think a lot of times the Appalachian people are shoved aside and not given the credit for the treasure trove of knowledge that they have and
Right.
how they've lived their lives. And I mean, literally, we are descendants of those survivors. We are my bloodline is the ones who survived. And I know I'm being repetitive, but that's why it means so much to me. And they had the gifts of seeing. They called it seeing. I see. And they did their spells to thank the trees. I mean, they did all of this, and that's why I'm trying so desperately to make it remembered and hang on to it and give it the weight that it deserves because so many people just do not. They're thought of as stupid hillbillies that live up in the mountains and and don't have teeth and married their cousin. And that's not the truth. I mean, does that happen? Oh, of course. But there's way more to the Appalachian heritage and the lines of the granny witches than it's given credit for. That's why it means a lot to me. Absolutely.
Yeah, and I think that goes back to that stigma that we were talking about near the beginning of the show, and that's I think that exists on a level of individuals, and I think it can exist on levels of regions, and I do agree. I've always been fascinated by that part of the country, and just I mean, even without looking into it, I've come across heard and on different shows so many accounts of people that have been in that area, that lived in that area, that had anomalous experiences, and it's just all over the place.
Well, I have a respect for the mountains and a respect for the culture, and that goes probably beyond majority of people because I've seen it from the inside out.
Right.
And I think it's not funny, haha. It's funny, ironic to me that people will go into those mountains with a little backpack and a little tent and think that they're doing something fantastic. I would be scared to death to do that. And like I said, I'm a hillbilly from way back when. I'll fight a bobcat if I had to, and I think that's why people are afraid of me because they get that vibe off of me that I'm not afraid of anything. But I wouldn't do that for $1 billion because I would not go up there thinking I was going to come back because I know what's in those hills, and people are just so nonchalant about. Oh, we went backpacking and hiking and we went up to blah blah blah. And I'm like, and you came back, wow. So
Yeah, and then you get so many accounts of that where we went out there and for this camping or hiking trip, and again we saw something, we heard something, and we
I
can't explain it.
I and like I said, I wish I had paid closer attention because my grandparents knew all the sounds. They knew all the sounds. I mean like they could predict the weather. I mean, they would watch bugs and they'd say, "Oh, it's going to be a good year for this, bad year for this. Going to have a lot of rain. Going to have a lot." Like the persimmons, they cut the persimmons open. That was on the almanac page the other day. The persimmons have got spoons in them this year, so that means we're going to have a lot of snow. Well, my grandparents took that to the bank because they had to. Because if they didn't, they didn't survive. If it was going to be a bad snowy winter, they had to bring the cattle into a certain place where the snow wouldn't get them. They had to be sure they had X number of foods and things stored away because they wouldn't be able to get to the barns. They prepared, and they prepared with what nature gave them. And like I said, I'm into the paranormal. I believe in it. I set my heart by it every single day with what I do. But it is connected to the people in the mountains in a way that I hope I can do justice to someday because I really can't explain a lot of it, but it is all related. If they had listened to these intuitions and these the stories that they were told, and don't go in the woods when you hear this, they wouldn't have survived. And I feel like I'm a survivor, and I just love to be able to say that my lineage were survivors. And in this day and time, I don't think there's many people that can do that. And anyhow, it just makes my heart feel happy that that's where I come from.
Yeah, I had never heard the persimmon one on the weather, but I had heard that we are supposed to be getting the rough winter this winter, even all the way
Yep.
down this way.
Yeah,
That's
well, the
supposed to be.
persimmon, yeah, the persimmons. This year it's a spoon, and it looks like a spoon when you cut a persimmon into. If it's a fork, it's supposed to be a wet winter. If it's a knife, it's supposed to be a cold winter. And I remember my grandmother talking about that because we had a persimmon tree on the farm, and she said, "Boy, it's going to be a bad one this year. Oh, it's not going to be too bad." I remember her talking about that, and that goes into the Granny Witch folklore. I mean, it's folklore mixed in with a seeing and a knowing and a culture that just it blends. It all just blends beautifully, and you get these aha moments that make sense to you. And those are the ones that I hang on to.
That's pretty amazing. Yeah, that's and it's important do for sure share these stories and share these things of and um it's like I need to get my mom back on here again and tell more stories and stuff like that. I was like, that'd be
I would
cool.
love to hear your mom. That would be amazing. I would love to hear.
Um, yeah, I think a few months back, I guess. Yeah, to go back and see, but yeah, hear some of the stories and stuff like that. Because she has like some of the same gifts like you do. She can tell somebody, she can get a phone call and know what that phone call is about. Like somebody like her best friend's husband passed away, and she
Yeah.
knew he was passed away before, and
I hate it.
stuff
I
like that.
absolutely hate it. And my son and I are psychic. We had this psychic connection. It's like we always say we're two bodies with one brain. We are so connected. I mean, I'll have a dream and I'll call him up. I'll say, Adam, I dreamed about so and so last night, and we'll look like tomorrow and he died. Or I dreamed about we do this all the time, and we're to the point now where we have little books by our beds and we write down what we dream and what we see. I have lucid visions, and my grandmother had lucid visions. She would tell you, this is going to happen, you better be careful, take your jacket, it's going to rain today, whatever. Just little things, but sometimes big things. And I remember that, and so we're to the point where we write down things and we put them in our phone so we can have a record of it. And it's if there's like a story on TV that somebody comes up missing, I'll write down what I think happened, and I'll date it, I'll seal it up, and I'll give it to my boyfriend or my son, and I say, just hang on to this. We may need to open it sometime in the future, but this is what I see. And I do that all the time. And my grandmothers did that. I mean, that was part of the granny heritage as well. And they knew things that they had no way of knowing, but they knew. And fortunately or unfortunately, however you want to look at it, a lot of it, that's how they survived. I mean, they didn't have, Fox News or CNN or whatever to tell them what was going on in the world. They just knew. And they didn't think it was strange or weird or anything out of the normal, because that's how they survived.
That for
Yeah.
sure, and people just being more in tune with what's around them and stuff like that. Now we have such a distraction with everything, with technology and cars and the business of the streets and whatever, and business of people. And for sure, people back in the day they were they didn't have as much going on like that. They had what they survival mode, and so they could be more in tune to what was going on in the world.
Absolutely. This happened today, I can tell you. My grandmother was really good at predicting the weather. She knew when it was going to rain. She knew when it was going to turn cold. She knew. And how she knew at the time I didn't understand, but I listened to her. And I know you probably heard this because it's just such a common thing. But today, my boyfriend and I went out to go get a Dutch Bros coffee. And we were in line, and I looked up, and the leaves were all turning upside down. I said, it's going to rain. He says, no, there's no rain in the forecast. It's just going to be really hot. I said, no, it's going to rain. And I put the window down. I said, you smell it. He says, you can't smell rain. I said, yeah, you can. And it wasn't, we hadn't got around the block till it started raining. I'm like, yeah. Tell me my grandma didn't know her stuff. But just little things like that they knew, and that was their survival. Did their garden get watered? They didn't have unlimited supplies of water. They carried buckets from the river. They had to. Everything they did was intuition, and I think that's how it developed over the generations to end up to where I am today, doing the things that I do. I don't depend on it for a water supply. I don't depend on it for electricity or having enough wood to heat my house now in this day and time. But I believe that that's something that grew in our bloodline over the years, over the decades and generations. It's the only thing that makes sense. I can't account for it any other way.
Oh, for sure. And intuition, like I know for me personally, I know I've tried. I'm working on trying like just develop it and understand it like more and more. Like because like you said, it could be like little things. Like I know, and I've done it a bunch of times where I used to work at. I saved my old company millions of dollars, like literally millions of dollars, because I work for an asphalt company, and that stuff gets expensive really, really fast. And I'm like, I might tell my operator, cut the plant off. And I was like, 5 more tons, just cut the plant off. He was like, why? I was like,
Gonna rain.
because you need to cut the plant off. I was just saying, well, if we got to, we'll crank back up. I said, but cut the plant off. And it wouldn't be 5 minutes later, and the road foreman had called me. Hey, Ricky, and just all excited, like, hey, the paver just blew up, and we're going to be down. I was like, you need to stop running. I was like, I stopped running 15 minutes ago.
You know,
She was
it's
like,
funny. My ex-husband had a paving company. I have done that more times than I can tell you. I'm going to say, don't load those last triaxles. It's going to rain. He's like, it's not going to rain. It rained. I mean, and he would think I had kind of like jinxed him or something because he didn't believe anything. I said, told you it's going to rain, or I did that. I've done that more times. I love that you said that. That's amazing because it just kind of validates again what we do.
for sure, for sure.
It does.
But we're at our 2 hour. Um,
Oh my gosh, it flew by. Oh
well,
my
we were
gosh,
just
I
talking
have
about before we
so
talking. Like
much, you guys. You're amazing.
we exploded through here. I'd love to
I'm
have you come
so
back on.
I'm
Uh,
so grateful you asked me to be with you tonight. It's just been such an honor and a pleasure. I can't thank you enough.
oh yeah, yeah. If you want to come back for sure, come on back,
Hey,
and I'd
you
love
need
to.
to fill in a show. I will make myself available. You guys are great. I appreciate it.
Awesome, awesome. I
Thank you.
appreciate you. If you would just tell everybody again for the ones that came, especially the ones that came in a little later, and where they could find you so they can follow you
Um,
along. And
sure. My Facebook page is called Appalachian Visions. I have the messenger on that page, and I have an email also on that page. You can reach me either way. It You don't have to want a reading or anything. Just if you want to reach out and say hi or tell me a story about your family that you believe, maybe nothing paranormal, just a good memory of your grandma from the mountains. If you're from Appalachia, I would love to talk to you. I'm compiling information from my book, and I take every story very seriously into heart, and I would really, really love that. So if you want to reach out to me and talk to me just about daily things, I'll give you my cornbread recipe even. I would absolutely love that. And like I said, I am writing a book. I don't know how long it's going to take me. The more I put in it, the more I seem to find. But I am working on it every free moment I have. And if you do want a psychic reading, or you've got a haunted house, you want to find out who's haunting that house, or just anything to do with the paranormal or the granny witches or anything Appalachian, I am the girl you want to talk to. And I'm very old calling myself a girl, but I'll indulge myself tonight. Uh, excuse me. Reach out to my page, and I'll get back to you as soon as my admins send me everything that I need to respond to, and I will get back to you as soon as I possibly can. And I hope I haven't bored you to death tonight, but I'm very passionate about what I believe and what I do. And I think I've made a difference in some people's lives, and I hope I get to continue to do that until I go to the other side.
oh, for sure, for sure. And it's in the it's all in who you talk to. I know my mom said she went to the doctor a while back. Thinking about you seeing a little girl, and like your girl is like she went to the doctor, and there was another guy there, and he's probably like in his late 80s, and he's like, "Hey, little girl," and she's like, "Who are you talking to?" He's like, "You." I said, "Hey, little girl." Like his mom's like, "You know how old I am?" But it's all in perspective. Who you talk to. And
Well, I turned
um,
66 earlier this summer, and I'm carrying around my Medicare card and all that kind of stuff, but I still feel like I'm 30. So I mean, I do what I
there you
do,
go.
but every year I seem like I learn a little more that I can offer back. So I look at it as a good thing.
That's awesome,
Yeah.
awesome. James, you got your
Yeah.
last second.
Well, just again, it was great talking with you, uh, uh, and yeah, just with both of you, and everything that you want to, if I can talk, you can find everything that I do at salsidoparanormal.com. That's SALSIDO paranormal.com. That's all the episodes of the show, along with links to social media and ways to listen and support the show and friends of the show, and yeah, go from there. Thank you, Ricky, for having me on. I'm gonna head out here in a moment myself. So, everyone,
Yeah.
take care. Thank you.
Oh yeah, for sure. I appreciate the chat. The chat was really, really good tonight. Both sides, Rumble and the YouTube. And for everybody, all the lurkers, we appreciate the lurkers too. It's always good. Uh,
Lurkers are my friends.
yeah, it's a funny how like some of them, like all of a sudden somebody come up to me, ask me questions about my show or something like that, and I'm like, all right, didn't know you were watching. All right, cool. All right,
There you go.
so. But I appreciate y'all. Let me hit this outro, and we'll get out of here on the Rumble. I'll send you to Trouble Minds Radio, and because I know that's our friend Mike Strange show starting now, and I think he's going to be talking about uh, conspiracy culture tonight. So that'll be an interesting story. So
That's good.
appreciate y'all,
That's good.
and see y'all Wednesday.
Bye-bye.
The porch light flickers low, a cold hand on the door. Your name is in the walls, I've heard it there before. Paper signs in the yard, bent sideways in the rain. The mirror keeps my face, but not the same old name. Hear that step, it's near, right behind the veil. Hold your breath, stay close when the floorboards wear. Beyond the possible, come closer, come closer. Beyond the possible, the house knows your shadow. Beyond the possible, say it slow, say it slow. Beyond the possible, and follow where the dark goes. Jack-o'-lantern grin, burned into the stone. A key under the mat for a room nobody owned. I saw you at the glass, then you slipped from view. 3 knocks from the hall and they were.
This country starts early. It works hard. It stays focused. It keeps moving. It stands ready. And it carries the weight. Strong coffee for a strong nation.
Who knows what evil lurks in the hearts of men? The shadow knows.
Are you troubled by strange noises in the middle of the night?
Do you experience feelings of dread in your basement or attic?
Have you or any of your family ever seen a spook, specter, or ghost?